Welcome to Delta Green Future Perfect, Part 1. This is Episode 1 of a 2-episode recording. Future Perfect was written by Dennis Deltweller and is a copyright of the author. Delta Green is a trademark and copyright of the Delta Green Partnership. I'm Shane Ivey. I ran this game for my friends Amber, who played UC Berkeley anthropologist Penelope Hawtrey, Jeremy, who played EPA Special Agent Janet Bailey, John, who played FBI Special Agent Aaron Dressner, and Tabitha, who played UC Berkeley librarian Harley Woodhouse. The recording opens as we're discussing the fallout for Dressner and Bailey from their participation in an earlier Delta Green operation, described in the scenario Music from a Darkened Room. How does your character sort of smooth things over and get back into everyone's good graces, or prevent it from becoming a really thorny thing?
I think Dressner's just going to basically pretend it didn't happen. I mean, he won't talk about it unless someone brings it up explicitly. He's going to go bury his head in his spreadsheets and stuff and get back to his white collar stuff. And just try to ignore the whole thing. And actually hope that it didn't actually happen. Hope that it will go away and never enter his life again, even though he's agreed to it.
Right.
Janet. So Janet had been officially assigned to that case, right? By the string pulling?
I think so, yeah.
So her bosses probably know that there was the death of an agent involved, so she was probably assigned to go through some therapy as well, and she'll go through it, and she just
plays along.
Yeah, plays along with it. And
is it time for my epiphany yet?
you know, the counselor was probably had so many other cases to deal with that she was able to get her name off his list, and that's all she was a name on the list to mark off.
All right.
For him, I'll also say that I think that he and his wife were probably talking about having kids at some point, and that's off the table right now.
Oh, yeah.
For the past year.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's causing some stress at home because he's like, no, it's not a good time.
You want me to bring a child into
this. Which is hard, yeah.
Which she doesn't understand.
At all, of course. What do you do?
All right.
So you didn't share any of that with her? Nothing of what happened at the house at all?
No, you can't. I mean,
I just didn't know what you
would
might
you
have
tell
said or
her?
didn't say. Or does she know about the agent being killed?
yes, that she'll know. Because then we had to go through all the investigation and everything. Yeah, so she knows. And I'm sure that's why she thinks I'm so fucked up now. And that's not really it. It's the fact that it was a haunted house and we murdered a guy to summon a god. So, yes.
You're way more believing in haunted houses and human sacrifice than
Exactly.
Than your average detective.
a few days ago.
That shit's real.
All right. So it's May, and more or less present day. We'll assume present day, but it's May, and Dressner, you get called on an assignment kind of unexpectedly to California, which is nowhere near your bailiwick since you're right East Coast.
Right.
But everybody else just sort of, your ASAC, who kind of gives you the news, sort of shrugs and says, you know how it is. They had a box to check, and I guess they needed somebody white collar, and it was your turn.
All right. Yeah.
So he gives you tells you to report to that they arrange for transportation, and back in the 90s, the FBI agents had to take Greyhound everywhere. So
Really? That's horrible.
Yeah.
Poor guys.
Yeah.
To say
These days, I think Greyhound is actually more expensive than flying, so they'll probably put you on a coach on some the shittiest, cheapest possible flight to fly you out there, and they tell you that there's there's Agent Grunberg, who's sort of the supervising investigator, and ASAC Slotin is in charge of the Bakersfield office.
Bakersfield.
Yeah, it's a rinky-dink. And that too kind of seems a little.
I was surprised Bakersfield has an FBI office.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that they'd be sending you there specifically is also a little flaky.
Yeah, not a lot of white collar activity.
Yeah. the main headquarters, the main running office is Sacramento for that. For that area, for like California, basically.
How do federal agents transport their firearms on a plane? I'm just curious.
If I remember right, you basically make arrangements ahead of time, and
Right.
you can get permission to go, to go with your pistol.
Like
armed.
you carry it?
Yeah, I mean
Wow,
it's like
okay.
U.S. That's what U.S. Marshals that are assigned to
Right.
protect things do that. Yeah, but
Okay.
as a
You have to get a
as a
special permit.
federal agent, yeah, you probably have to jump through a couple of hoops. But as an FBI agent, it's sort of mandatory because you're officially required to be armed at all times. So,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah. Yeah. So so you fly out and you take you do have to take a bus from the airport to the Bakersfield office, unless you're going to pay for a taxi on your own dime.
No.
And the receptionist welcomes you in and checks to see that you're actually supposed to be there, and goes through a couple of other things, and then takes you into their sort of central meeting room, which is this sort of secure room that they've built into even the rinky-dink offices over the years of the War on Terror. So where they can have meetings without risking eavesdropping of any kind, and when you go you go there and go into that room, and Janet Bailey is in there.
And you're like,
That's
oh,
not a good sign.
shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And so are two strangers
Uh-huh.
that you don't know.
Wait. Female.
Yes.
Female. Okay.
Bunch of
So,
ladies.
3 women.
And yeah, I mean you've got a pretty good human score, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they both look like
They know what to do.
they both look like civilians and academics, and a little nervous and twitchy.
I haven't seen that before.
Welcome to the opera.
I guess it had to come at some point.
Alright, well, we've got a new directive from A-Cell. A new directive from the top. We are to determine whether the death of Clifford Potter or Lucille Meyer near Hill Bend, California indicates an incursion actionable by Delta Green. If an incursion is indicated, we need to investigate it, isolate it, prevent further exposure to it, stop it, and prevent recursion. Collect and secure physical remains, evidence, and artifacts for delivery as instructed in supplementary directives. Prepare a report for delivery as instructed by said directives. And destroy this immediately upon memorizing its contents. So here we have a map of Hellbend, California. Yeah, right next to Death Valley.
It's in the middle of Death Valley
Oh,
National Park,
it sure is.
near the Nevada border.
We've got Clifford's body and Lucille's body were both found. Well, Clifford was north and Lucille was south of Hellbend. Approximately 4 miles for Clifford and 3 miles for Lucille. Alright, so on May 12th, Hellbend, California, population 87, lies at a crossroad in the heart of Death Valley National Park. The Inyo County Sheriff's Office, headquartered in Independence, California, 130 miles from Hellbend, provides law enforcement for the area. Death Valley National Park is U.S. government property, but the federal government generally leaves law enforcement to city, county, or state authorities. For Hellbend and the nearby region, Deputy Sheriff Lucas Androzzi commands 6 deputies at the Death Valley resident post at Furnace Creek Ranch, about 10 miles southeast of Hellbend. So see if you can find that on there.
Okay, right here, Furnace Creek.
Yeah, go ahead and mark it. Hellbend resident Clifford Potter died on March 5th, 2015 at an abandoned industrial site just north of town. In consultation with Inyo County Coroner Abner White, Deputy Andrew Z. determined Potter's death was most likely a freak mechanical accident. Hellbend resident Lucille Meyer was reported missing April 24th, 2015. The town organized an unsuccessful search on April 25th. Her body was found about a mile south of town on May 8th, 2015, by Deputy Andrew Z. while on patrol. Coroner White confirmed similarities between the injuries which apparently slew Mayer and Potter. After reviewing the Mayer report, Inyo County Sheriff Alfred Mann instructed Deputy Andrew Z. to reopen the Potter case. Mann contacted the U.S. Park Service and California's Bureau of Investigation and Intelligence to tell them that there may have been 2 murders in Death Valley National Park and to request assistance if the federal government preferred to let the county investigate and prosecute. U.S. Park Service unexpectedly asserted jurisdiction and assigned a team of special agents and consultants to investigate. The team expects to work out of the Sheriff's Office Death Valley resident post at Furnace Creek Ranch. Lodging is on site at the ranch at Furnace Creek Motel, and I'm guessing we're that team.
Yeah, you have little ID cards and badges that identify the 2 of you as special agents for the National Park Service,
Mm-hmm.
and the 2 of them as consultants.
Okay.
The details beyond that are kind of up to you to come up with.
Amber, will you read I'm sorry, what's your character's name?
Penelope.
Penelope, will you read that file?
This is about the victim of Clifford Potter. White male,
That's
age
going to get
50.
old real fast.
A metal worker who moved to Hellbend nearly 20 years ago after retiring early from a foundering Ford plant in Detroit. He was known to collect scrap metal in the ruins of the Hunt Electrodynamics plant outside town. Potter's body was found near the Bobcat construction vehicle that Potter had rented from the Sippin' Gas in Hellbend. The body had been badly disturbed and largely devoured by scavengers, although that did not cause the trauma that apparently killed him. Both his arms, now missing, were sheared off through the humerus. They showed marks consistent with a series of 2 to 5 inch blades, perhaps from a construction tool. His rib cage was crushed as if by a weight of at least half a ton. And it gives the vitals.
No, keep going.
Okay.
I don't need to know.
He was 5 feet 10, 165 pounds. Time of death, 1800 to 2100 hours, March 5th, 2015. He was discovered by Jarvis Green, the proprietor of the Sippin' Gas. His body was located 2.3 miles north of Hellbend, 400 yards from the Hunt Electrodynamics plant. Cause of death, blunt force and cutting trauma. He doesn't have any living family and no known enemies. Okay.
This is the victim, Lucille Meyer. White female, age 36, a sculptor from Los Angeles who moved to Hellbend in 2009 to live with her girlfriend, artist Emily Warren. Meyer was known to walk the perimeter of Hellbend to look for scraps of dried wood for sculptures. They're both looking for scraps of wood. That's weird. Meyer's body was found in a little cave in a gully on the outskirts of town. Much of the body was missing, and what remained had been largely devoured by scavengers. Meyer was identified from dental records. Her ribcage and skull were crushed as by a weight of at least half a ton. One leg, one arm, and her pelvis had been sheared through with tremendous force. They showed marks consistent with the marks on Potter's body, and with the series of 2 to 5 inch blades, perhaps from a construction tool. Her vitals were 5'2", 102 pounds. Time of death was between April 24th and May 8th. That's a big window. She was discovered by Joshua Orino, U.S. Park Ranger. Her body was located at 1.2 miles south of Hellbend in an arroyo cave. Cause of death was blunt force and cutting trauma. Family was Emily Warren, companion, Tanya Meyer mother, who lives in Los Angeles, and she had no known enemies.
So there's a while before they found her body.
Yeah, the thing about the park ranger, scratch that out. I didn't catch that. I should have corrected that. It was actually Deputy Androsi who found
Sure,
her.
he found both of them. No, the second guy found the first one.
The proprietor.
Because he's looking for his rented bobcat. That was not returned.
So Jarvis Green did not.
He did.
Jarvis Green found
But the park
He
rangers
found
were...
Potter,
Potter,
and
and
Deputy Androsi found Meyer.
all right.
Given the separation of the body, I don't think there's anything geographic about it. I mean, they're not in the same place. They're not something there.
Well, we should still investigate the scene.
Sure.
Here's some information on the hotel we'll be staying at.
Okay.
Here's some pictures of the area.
That's your approach into
Nice.
Death
Death
Valley.
Valley.
Death Valley. That's depressing.
and it's coming into Furnace Creek Ranch.
Probably some of the wood.
And that's what our room.
You can choose either a cabin with 2 beds, or a room with 1 king bed, or a standard room with 2 queen beds. They let you have rollovers in those normal rooms, but not in the cabins.
What do you mean rollovers?
Rollaway beds, I mean.
But you get 2 adjoining cabins with double beds in each.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Just for
Because
isolation.
yeah, that way in case there's strange noises in the night, there are fewer questions.
Exactly. All right, so we're meeting in Bakersfield, but we're going to have to get a rental or something to get out to Hellbent.
Mm-hmm.
And officially, I'm on an official FBI investigation.
You've been detached.
Detached
out
from
to.
it. So I could get a receipt on a rental car and charge.
Yeah.
Okay, so make sure how to,
Sites not to be messed with in the park. The Borax Museum at the ranch at Furnace Creek provides the history of the property and key figures involved in the history of Death Valley and the resort. The Borax Museum.
learn all that more.
Also, do not miss Mushroom Rock, Zabriskie Point, Dante's View, and Harmony Borax
I
Works.
have it all right.
Devil's Golf Course is actually not a golf course at all, but rather an expansive salt field caused by evaporated bodies of water. One can actually see the crystallization process at work. If you're willing to stare at the same place for millennia.
It doesn't take a millennia. Depending on the weather, it could take as little as 4 hours staring at the same spot in the hot, hot sun.
Is there anything we think we need to acquire here before we leave?
Okay, so,
It's about a 4-hour drive.
Okay.
yeah.
8 if you're on the bus.
All right, we're taking the car.
Yeah. So, in addition to all of this stuff, there was also the name badges, the fake, or are they fake IDs or are they just
So it's temporary.
temporary?
They're official, but
Official
if
fakes.
anybody calls around, then you both were very recently assigned to the Park Service.
Yeah.
You've been sheep dipped is the name for it.
So it gives us some authority in the park to go around and do stuff, but
Mhm.
if we really question it,
Yeah.
we would look iffy anyway.
So we've got the official IDs, all of this information. Anything else in the packet?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
I might come up with something later if it seems to make sense.
All right, so we call, make our reservations for the 2 adjoining cabins,
Yeah.
get a rental car.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we need to bring anything else.
Special Agent Grunberg is in the Bakersfield office. You've been told is your sort of your contact.
Okay.
For the group, if something comes up.
Grunberg?
Yeah.
I am going to go shopping before we leave. Given our last experience, I think we need to have some things on hand.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
I
other
agree.
cleaning gloves, bleach, some
Rope.
Yeah, rope, not a bad idea, nylon
A
rope.
tarp?
A tarp or two.
Probably, if we're going to be out there.
Here, I'll make the shopping list.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want...
Go back to Meadowbrook and get some of those lime buckets.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we really
Okay,
need.
so
Barrels of lime.
we've got tarps, flashlights,
Yes. Rope.
rope,
What in the world would you need oven
Shovels.
cleaning gloves for?
Work-
I'm asking.
Stuff you don't want to touch.
I'm gonna
maybe,
put
like,
work gloves down.
light.
Work gloves and rubber gloves.
Yes. Just in case there's stuff you don't want to touch. I don't know.
Let's see.
Oh, come on. There's going to be stuff you don't want to touch.
What's everyone armed with? I've got a handgun.
I've got a handgun.
I'm a librarian.
I don't know that I would have to.
Armed with knowledge and
I would want a
moral
gun.
superiority.
Exactly.
Knowledge is power.
I think after our last experience, we should bring along at least one shotgun.
Yeah, let's go to Walmart and buy a shotgun.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like they require
I
a
know.
background
We'll
check.
take that one.
Shotgun and let's say 4 cases of ammo. That should
What
be
in
enough,
the
though.
world?
Who are you asking for your shotgun?
We're going to go buy one at Walmart.
Requisition it at Walmart. EPA, give me a shotgun.
Which one of you actually buys it?
Come right ahead.
Go ahead, Janet.
Yeah, I'll buy it.
Okay. Yeah, make a note there, shotgun bought by me.
Yeah. Ideally, we'll never have to use it.
4 boxes of
4 boxes of
Yeah.
buckshot.
How much is-
You want any boxes of slugs to go with it?
probably one.
What about 2, 3 in 1?
Yeah, 3 in 1 makes sense. What's
World,
in a box of
do you
shells?
need
A
gun
dozen?
for?
How many boxes are in it?
Oven
Shotgun
cleaning
shells.
gloves? Guns? What in the world?
I'm just thinking about size, what a typical box would be.
Yeah.
I think
I would guess a dozen.
between 12, I think 12 or 18.
Yeah. That makes sense.
What was the question?
How many shotgun shells are in a box?
12. Or 18. Well, you can get 12, 18, and 24 packs, depending on how much money you want to spend.
We'll spend some money if we need to.
Yeah.
I'd rather spend it ahead of time.
The last
Although
thing we
if you
need to
get
do is discover the monster and then go and drive 100 miles to the nearest Bass Pro Shop.
Well, I bet there's a shop that sells stuff in Helmet.
Yeah.
Even a tiny. Well, maybe not. They accept people.
Bass Pro Shop here sells a box of 25 Texas Heavy 12 gauge shots
Good enough.
for pretty inexpensively.
Yeah. Good.
So it's 25 each. Take
Sure.
box.
Yeah, it's only $8.
It's not bad at all.
Why, you can kill a lot of people for only $8.
Or at least send them to the hospital for the dogs that murder. So we got 2 tarps, 4 flashlights,
Mercy.
2 shovels.
That's terrible.
2 shovels, 4 pairs of work gloves,
I'm looking at the shopping list.
4 pairs of rubber gloves,
Increasingly uncomfortable.
Crowbar and bolt cutters.
Getting all these
special
things from the same
throwing
store.
bolt cutters.
Well balanced.
Balance for hurling.
We were watching somebody using bolt cutters. That was on Sons of Anarchy the other day. I'm like, you can't throw those things. You can
No.
barely use them.
Yeah.
The head's so heavy.
Yeah.
We got rope. Let's say,
100 feet of nylon rope. Two coils.
yeah.
Pretty cheap.
Get some iron spikes.
That's right, a 10-foot pole. $10,000.
10-foot roll.
A python.
What?
Hunting dogs.
Well, it's an old D&D joke. My old D&D group in high school. We had 10,000 gold pieces. One of my $10,000 to drive into this. And have them kill everything and we'd walk in and pick up all the trash. They're only a gold piece each. We have 10,000 gold pieces for $10,000. No, it was a super fun.
The dogs would get the XP for killing the animals, but it's first edition AD&D,
So the gold
you'd
was
get
well
the
worth
XP
it.
for the gold.
All the treasure. It was a trade-off.
Sure.
We wouldn't get hurt.
Alright.
I wonder if on these bodies.
Well, I'm curious about the 2 to 5 inch blades being able to shear off body parts.
Well, so I'm wondering if that happened. You know, I'm more
Postmortem.
intrigued by the crush by the weight of at least half a ton, crushing the rib cage and skull.
And then not being there when they found the body. Like,
Well, there's bits, whether it crushed them, yeah.
yeah.
So they think that the theory is that they were caught in some sort of industrial machinery.
That's what the deputy thought for
Well, that's
Potter,
what he thought
because
for
he had
Potter,
rented
yeah.
a Bobcat and it was right there. But
But when they found
Even
Lucille,
that's
she
sketchy.
had
Yeah.
Meyer wasn't.
Yeah, she hadn't been
So-
doing anything. Heavy
After we get to the town, after we get the Hellbound and we get settled in and everything, we should contact Androzy.
It just keeps going.
I know. I'm
Uh,
so sorry.
Pull up the old case files, see everything they've got on it. We probably won't find anything from revisiting the crime scenes, especially that first one, but
It's worth it.
yeah, it's definitely worth it. We should also interview the sipping the gas and sip or
Yeah,
whatever,
that guy and then her girl.
and her
Yeah.
girlfriend.
Making an action list.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you doing that?
I'm curious about that power plant too. We could contact the people at the power station and see if anyone there noticed anything
That's
suspicious.
like
Sipping
I bet
gas,
the
or-
person at the Borax Museum is probably a local history nut. I bet they can tell us something about the background.
Yeah, if there's
The-
ever been any
the
similar.
The
gas-
abandoned
Oh,
hydro-
the
hydroelectric,
factory.
whatever.
You know?
Oh, is it abandoned?
Hunt Electrodynamics.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's abandoned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an old industrial plant.
Yeah.
I mean,
From,
he's
like,
going
the
there for
50s or
scraps.
60s.
I don't
Well, I
think
mean,
we're
and,
gonna
I
skip
mean,
the power if they were
we
still operating.
could try to find out if there had been previous deaths in years past that were unsolved and
Well, we talked to the sheriff. Why don't you two try to hit as many of the sort of civilian things you like look into the local records. If there's a library here, librarian,
on it.
and then like you said, maybe check out the museum, see if they know anything about the history of that plant.
Let me have that sweet microfiche.
You guys can work
yeah,
on that
just
stuff.
see if you can find
Yeah.
anything.
Well,
There's a museum here, if nothing else. We can go.
Yeah, those people always know like all the local
Yeah.
history stuff.
I'm thrilled to go to the museum.
Okay.
So
Sweet borax.
sweet borax.
Learn all there is to know about borax mining.
Mhm.
It was an important, what's it, essential salt? Now, what is borax? It's a mineral, but
It's
what do they use it for?
it's a detergent and a water softener.
And they just found a line in it?
Okay.
Sodium borate.
I'm just imagining like those meat softener hammers, the meat tenderizers,
Yeah.
splashing water over them
What?
to soften the water.
Yeah.
Tenderize the water.
Tenderize the water, make the water softer. That hard water.
Most people just call that ice, right?
No,
Yeah.
you've made me tired, Jeremy.
All right.
So,
water bottles.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Definitely water bottles.
Yeah, probably. I'd say 2 cases of water bottles
Yeah.
and personal canteens.
Good idea.
I'm gonna
Good
buy some of those
thinking,
water
Gina.
purification tablets just because we're in the survival nonsense area anyway while you guys are buying guns.
Yeah.
I'm like, here, these look useful.
Okay.
Yeah, some energy bars, whatnot. Just in case.
Don't let anybody look in the trunk.
Give me your characters' names again.
Harley Woodhouse.
Harley. Dr. Penelope Hawtrey. Hawtrey. Hawtrey.
There's not enough GHs in there for that to be an actual British name.
H-A-U-G-H-T-R-E.
HAUGHTREIGH.
Hawtrey.
All right. So you can go through a lot of that when you're planning as you're in the long drive out there. Yeah. And so, are there any other questions for each other? Or anything you want to know about your?
Sure, I mean, I'll ask
Your
your basic
companions.
backgrounds or whatever. Your history.
Like the two of you
Have
don't.
tastes.
Yeah, I mean you clearly the two of them know each other from something before.
There's some weird
Vibe.
sitting
Yeah.
there.
And-
Yeah, I noticed the look on your face when you walked in and saw her sitting there.
I'm reasonably sure your exes and have been caught doing something immoral.
Well, the second part's totally true. Yeah.
All right, so you want to tell us more about you?
I'm Harley Woodhouse. I'm a
And by the way, I totally did bring the bowl and the bronze knife just in case.
Of course you
Oh, okay, where are
Just carry
those?
that around with you.
do. He has a specially made satchel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I need
it's,
to get that through security.
it's probably just in my luggage.
Well, it's a weapon, though, right?
Like,
Well, but you can have that kind of stuff in your
yeah, in your stowaway.
stowaway.
Or not your stowaway, but your
Check
Yeah.
baggage.
your checked baggage. And if someone asks me about it, I'll say it's a souvenir.
Okay.
I mean, I cleaned them.
Yes.
It's not still filled with blood.
Hobo Jack's blood.
Yes. Do you have the book with you?
No, I don't need the book anymore.
Oh, okay. I see.
All right. So what? Where were we?
So yes.
Okay, Harley Woodhouse is
I'm not
one
going
of
to mention that to him. It's just I brought it
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
in case.
Might show up later.
Hey, remember when this happened?
Alright. Do you need
What?
to interrupt me again, or can I go ahead with my character?
What are your specialties?
Are you sure?
She's a Finnish American, so Finnish.
You sure? 'Cause
Is she so Finnish?
I'm a Finnish American. I was brought here unwillingly by my parents to this country when I was 8 years old, and I don't like it. But something happened. I don't really recall, and I find it very difficult to even try to think about what happened or why I don't recall it. But ever since then, these lunatics have been asking my help on these so-called missions. I'm one of those scary librarians with the extremely painted on hair down into a bun with not a single hair fray. And you're pretty sure my hair might be made of wax. Like those cat eye
You just
glasses.
go through 3 cans of hairspray in the morning.
It's literal wax. I put wax in my hair. It's gross. You don't know that.
We could tell from the
And I've
Also,
got
we're
one
about
of
to go
those-
into Death Valley. We'll know pretty soon.
And you'll notice. It'll be dripping down my temples. Ew. And I've got that looming librarian presence that scares the shit out of 10-year-olds.
Right. I have to do longer roll.
Okay.
I'm listening.
Okay,
Wait, what are you good at?
I'm good at accounting and bureaucracy and computer science, and library sciences, which is totally a thing, I promise. And I know a startling amount about the occult for a librarian, largely because I read everything,
We would have a lot to talk about.
even though it was made out of human skin.
Okay, so I'm Dr. Penelope Hawtrey from England. I think I've mentioned my educational background and my Ph.D. in anthropology. Officially, I'm a parapsychologist. No, not officially. That is what I am, but I don't tell people that I do that.
Because nobody will give you money for it.
Because nobody will give me money for it, so I'm an anthropologist, and I don't really talk a lot about the paranormal and the occult, but that is completely where my interest lies since having had an experience early on.
What kind of school do you figure you teach at?
Well, well, I attended Berkeley, so, and I have a colleague slash special friend here, and he also teaches. He's a professor.
Okay. So one of the Bay Area schools?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, but I have my daughter is still over in England, but yeah, I'm here. And, I have Benjamin Carr, who is my friend professor. But anyway, I have a vast knowledge of history, the occult. I'm really good at finding out things, finding out facts, searching out hidden places. Having done been on a lot of different investigations. So yeah, that's her in a nutshell.
Sweet word. That's decaf. Decaf. Cat, I said right. Cat is ready to be made. If you want to start with them when we get there, I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, I'm going to the museum and you're going to the library, right?
Thing.
What library?
Or we could both go.
What library are we talking about?
If there is a library locally, I would want to check it out.
Not in Furnace Creek.
No? Okay. So we're both going to the museum.
Yeah, I guess we'll go to the Borax Museum then.
Talk to the docents, who are probably bored out of their minds.
Probably.
It's the Borax Museum.
Nice. So there's like 2 or 3 people in there at most that are all like leaning against the counter.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a little early in tourist season, so the tourists that are here are mostly retirees, but there's a lot of those. So the Borax Museum. So yeah, Furnace Creek is it's this sort of sprawling. There's a large part of it is the motel, which is all single story kind of rows of rooms that look out over artificially kept, over heavily watered green lawns, and the premium rooms open out right onto the golf course. Then there are the cabins that are all over, and there's a handful of little shops and stores, and a lot of kind of faux Wild West tchotchkes everywhere. The Borax Museum makes a big deal of being the oldest building in Death Valley, because it was built in the 1880s and was used for all kinds of things before it became the Borax Museum. The sheriff's office, the county sheriff, keeps a station in Furnace Creek as well, which is where Deputy Androsi is stationed. And they're basically responsible for about a 15 or 20 mile radius around Furnace Creek or something like that. There's about a half dozen deputies, so there's usually 2 or 3 on duty at a time. for the area, and there are a few support people in that office too. The museum, whoever is running it, it's probably a senior citizen volunteer who runs the thing, who a retired volunteer who lives here, who welcomes you in and very enthusiastically offers to show you around and tell you all about minerals.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating.
And wonders if you're here with your families, and
Do you have children?
what are the what are some of the sites you're planning on seeing here in Death Valley, and how long will you be here, and that kind of thing.
Did you say we trade children? Tell him, well, obviously I'm originally from England and happened upon your small town.
Every character with the ostentatious British accent always remind people she's from England.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm from England.
Obviously. And, yeah, just that I'd never been, out here before. I've lived in California for a little while. Just kind of seeing the sights.
Mm-hmm.
So you're posing as a tourist?
No, I'm not answering directly, just kind of looking around. Just have never been out this way from me.
I'm giving you a derisive stare.
I'm used to that from you probably already.
I know.
So, yeah, I'm not sure
I'm gonna
what to look for here, really. At the Borax Museum of minerals and whatnot.
We're not interested in borax. Anyways, I'm going to introduce myself as a.
I'm surprised you're having to struggle with that at all.
Cultural attaché, or no, consulting attaché to the investigation into these grisly murders.
Grisly what?
Murders, possibly. Deaths, anyways.
Who got murdered? That's terrible.
How have you not heard of this?
Yeah, it's a very small town.
They would
Tell
release
about that.
accidents.
Potential murders. Accidents, perhaps? We don't know. Lucille Meyer and Clifford Potter.
Oh, up in Hellbend.
Mm-hmm.
Those were murders?
Well, we don't know.
You don't say. Well, that's fascinating.
Have there
They
been
weren't before, they are now.
Have there ever been any similar accidents or incidents of this kind? Seems a very specific way to die.
No, occasionally somebody gets hurt by animals or gets lost out in the desert, but not very often. We try hard to take care of visitors here.
Anything weird going on at night around here?
No. Well, there's the saloon down the street. It's just around the corner there. That's open at night. It's open good and late, and it's usually pretty easy to get along with there. But sometimes there's trouble, but I wouldn't call it weird. But that's one place that people can unwind at night, and then we have shows at the Furnace Creek at the ranch, at the hotel. There's shows once or twice a week. There's some of the restaurants. She names a couple of restaurants that are open that you can go to at night to amuse yourselves.
Okay.
And of course, if you're camping out, the desert's just beautiful at night. You can see stars that you'll never see anywhere else in the world.
You do a lot of camping out.
Man, we didn't.
No, not anymore, but I certainly enjoyed it.
Did you ever have any unusual experiences when you were camping at all?
Well, you bet. And she'll immediately launch into some really long-winded, not at all interesting story that she found fascinating.
She found it nicely.
So you've lived here for a long time. Did you know either Clifford or Miss Meyer?
No, not to speak to it. Hellbend is a small place, but I hardly ever had cause to go up there.
Okay. Well, this is a great museum.
Certainly very interesting, what with your minerals and all. Have a good night. They were pretty determined to not be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not informative.
Just something interesting. Hellbend has a population of 87, and both of these people who died aren't from Hellbend originally.
Well, hardly anybody is.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true.
Anything out from the old coots?
No.
They know nothing.
There's some pretty camping to be done, but outside of that.
They're either hiding something very, very well, or just
Oblivious to anything.
utterly worthless.
What were y'all going to do?
Sheriff.
You were sheriff. Okay. Yeah, it'd be good if we could maybe, I don't know, see the remains or talk to the person who did the autopsy of these bodies.
How long ago were the two bodies found?
March
How far
and
apart from
May.
each other?
One was in March and the other was between April and May, and it's May now, so.
So,
Yeah, the other body was found just a few days ago, I think.
Yeah,
So we ought to be able to at
is
least.
that one we should?
Yeah, that was 4 days ago.
Well, I don't know. They might have put her in the ground already, but maybe we can ask.
All right, so you're going to the
Sheriff.
sheriff's station here at Furnace Creek.
Furnace Creek.
All right, sure. So you go in there, and there's a receptionist, and there's one deputy that you recognize as Androsi, who's the sort of the supervisor of this station, and are there. And it's a fairly small, like it looks like a little log cabin, basically, that the station does, but with big antenna on top for communications, and a couple of Inyo County Sheriff 4x4s outside.
Oh, we haven't done it yet. We're going to today yet. By the way, those are your clothes over on the desk, I think.
So the receptionist kind of greets you and looks at the two of them quizzically.
Sure.
How are you both dressed and comporting yourselves?
My typical other guy suit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweating buckets, I'm sure.
All right.
What do you wear? Obviously looks like a federal agent.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, we'll come in and introduce ourselves and say we'd like to speak to Deputy
Androsi.
Yeah. Well, he stands up and comes over and shakes hands. He's kind of big and beefy, kind of. And he tells you to come in and have a seat, and there's like a little meeting room off to the side.
Okay, good.
And
Thank you.
I didn't get enough ice at first, but
That's fine.
so yeah, he sits you down and tells the receptionist to brew up some coffee and asks what he can do for you.
Well, first, if you'll fill us in on the situation.
Well, so we
Which
should
situation?
We've been sent to look into the deaths of Meyer and Potter.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's a strange thing with Meyer. I mean, with Potter, it seemed pretty cut and dry. I mean, so to speak. but with Meyer, I don't know. I don't know if I think Abner may have been reading a little too much into the state of the bones myself, but they were out there a while, and animals do all kinds of crazy things to a body.
What have you got around here that'll mess with a body?
You got coyotes. You got your cougars out there, and your Gila monsters and all kinds of lizards.
Okay.
Yeah. So with Clifford, in the notes that we received, it said that he died from blunt force and cutting trauma.
Well, it's that bobcat fell on him.
Was he underneath the bobcat?
It had kind of rolled around, so he wasn't squished underneath it when he found him. But it was pretty clear.
The bobcat was overturned.
What had happened? No, I don't know what had happened with it, but it was such a. You see that the plant out there, everything's kind of topsy turvy, So that thing could have
Rolled on
he could have driven it wrong and had it lean on him and crush him and grind him up and then right itself afterward.
Do you have some
when it was moving.
photos of the scene?
Sure.
Yeah, we wouldn't mind taking a look at that if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine. He double checks your identity.
Yeah, sure.
And, sure. Kind of does some paperwork and all that, and eventually he calls up photos on a computer for you to look at, and
So I'm already going in thinking, I'm pretty sure there's no way that bobcat fell on him and then righted itself, or he got crushed under it and ended up sitting normally off to the side. So I'm looking for that confirmation of these photos that
right.
the scene that makes that a possibility, because it sounds bogus as hell.
Yeah. So,
And we're going to go out there too. We're going to look at this and see something.
Well, that was almost 2 months ago.
Yeah.
That was actually over 2 months ago. Because that was March 5th, and it's May 12th.
Yeah, so
We won't find much if there's anything.
Photos of Potter. Right. So he was actually. You know what? Let me backtrack a little bit, because where he was found was not right in the middle of the ruins, but a few hundred yards outside of it. Androsi's point would still be the same.
Sure,
it's uneven ground and it's rocks and everything's kind of awkward. And but yeah, I mean the body was torn to pieces. The bobcat was covered in blood. The bobcat is upright. From your perspective, looking at the photos, it doesn't look like the bobcat was in a place that was likely for it to suddenly
fall over and roll back.
Yeah, start flopping around on it. But there he is.
Yes,
and it was
blood on the body.
Pretty plainly not an actual bobcat that tore him out.
Were his limbs found?
No, his arms were never found. What part of the bobcat has the blood on it? Like the cab or like the...
It was, I think, mainly one side of it. And from the photos that you're looking at, you don't see, I mean, like the lifting blades in the front are pretty filthy, you know, because he'd been digging around in things with them. But you don't see anything that looks like gore on the blades. Most of the gore seems to be on one side of the machine.
Does it look like a splash that could have happened from a spray of blood from off the bobcat, like someone standing next to it?
Sure.
And then the arm gets off and
Yeah, that would
could cover that pretty well.
That would make sense if there was somebody out there, you know,
Chopping off arms.
right, with some kind of weird giant tools the size of a bobcat blade.
With Edward Scissorhands.
Like and crushing with huge weight.
Right. So,
Yeah.
which, you know, Androsi kind of points that out to you and
Sure, yeah.
acknowledges that it's, you know, it's a strange thing. But,
Well, I'm not going to be questioning.
right,
this.
yeah, no, I get it. But he, you know, he's smart enough to recognize
But
that
weird.
that it looks a little sketchy, but
Yeah.
that's basically the best explanation that he and the coroner can come up with.
And I'll tell him
for
that
what happened to the poor guy.
Yeah, I'll tell him I'm sure if this was the only incident, we wouldn't have been called in.
Right.
It'd be fine. But
Does-
because of two, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Did Clifford live around that
The ruins?
Yeah,
Not
the
really. I mean,
ruins.
he lived on the outskirts of Hellbend, which is, I mean, Hellbend. Everything was on the
Three
outskirts
or
of
four.
Hellbend.
Yeah, there's no
but,
extensive.
but he didn't. Yeah, he didn't live particularly closer to the ruins than anyone else. He kind of lived off by himself. There are actually parts of Hellbend originally was founded when the electrodynamics plant was founded was launched, and it was sort of a company town. The plant closed after a big accident, and as soon as it closed, the town started withering up. So there are a lot of tracts of housing that are just empty now.
Right. So the town was much bigger at one point.
Yeah, so Potter lived in a house that was kind of out in one of those because he liked his isolation. Yeah.
So it was operating from what, like the 50s and 70s or something? Or?
Something like that, or from the 40s to the 60s maybe. I can.
It's not
that's
right.
all Androsi knows off the top of his head.
Yeah.
You can certainly get more
We'll find out
details.
later.
Do we know what he was doing with the bobcat near that area?
He liked to dig around out there looking for copper and things that he figured he could sell.
That was for selling. He didn't wasn't a sculptor or anything. He wasn't doing anything with it particularly.
Not that I know of.
Just pulled up scrap metal. Okay. That's good to know. I think that's probably all we can find out. Yeah, we think.
Yeah, well, we can ask about the second case.
Yeah.
All right, well, what about Lucille Meyer? What's a arroyo cave, by the way?
An arroyo is like a little gully. It's like a real shallow gully from. It sort of forms with these real temporary rivers in the desert. Yeah. So Lucille Meyer's body. I mean, there was when he found it. It was probably like the buzzards had probably been hanging out there for days at that point. I mean, there was very little left to call it even a body. He didn't know who it was he had found or how long she had been there. That's why the time of death is so nebulous. It's just because the body was in such bad condition. But the body itself was sort of in this little. It was like sort of this little cave, basically like not really a cave as much as just sort of a rock overhang in this arroyo, this little ravine. Which again, call it an arroyo as opposed to a ravine because it's not like a ravine that a bus can plunge down as much as it's
shallow.
Yeah. It's maybe 5 or 8 feet deep.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't that far away from the town, right?
It was a couple of miles. I mean, it was far enough out that if you weren't looking for it, it would just be another piece of the desert.
Right.
And that's why nobody noticed it, even though even
1.2 miles. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even if her body had been exactly in that place when they did the search for her, when she first disappeared, there's still no guarantee anybody would have found it.
Right. Did it look like that's where the cutting trauma had happened? Like, was there blood splatter on the rocks?
No, there wasn't a lot of blood there. Who knows? I mean, the body what's left of the body may have been dragged there by an animal.
Yeah, it was only a few days ago, right?
When he found it.
4 days ago. So we should go out there and look.
See if there was like if you can find the original spot of where she was murdered. There should be. I mean, with that kind of trauma, if it was just a few days ago, there's bound to be
Right.
like something like some sort of bloody scene somewhere.
Yeah. I don't think it's...
If they don't think that that's where where her body found.
Yeah. I mean, he says he hasn't seen it. It's a big desert.
Right. Okay.
Has there been any unusual weather events lately?
Nope. Hot and sunny.
Hot and sunny. Hot and sunny. Hot and sunny. So yeah, it wouldn't have washed away anything.
No. Well,
Or blown away.
Can I come there? Can we come here?
Y'all are still entertaining the docent, giving her lots and lots of gossip water.
Murders.
Wait, they're murderers?
Well, I think he's... So we're going to just let him know that, I doubt we're going to get very far on this, so we're just going to do some cursory
I figure
investigation.
it seems like Parks has sent you out just to dot the I's and cross the T's.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Nothing unusual here. Let's go home.
Nope.
So
Yeah.
But one more.
So of course, any assistance we can give you.
Yeah,
he
we
gives
appreciate it.
you his card and
I'll give him-
writes down like the cell numbers of the other local deputies
Right.
that are in his office here on the back of it, and and then he writes down the sheriff's name as well, phone number as well.
The sheriff's over.
Yeah, the sheriff's in Independence, which is like
Way
130 miles away.
Alfred Mann.
Yeah. So, and that's where the coroner's office is, where they have the bodies.
Okay.
Oh, I should probably go talk to the coroner.
Which is 130 miles away.
Mm-hmm. Well, what time of day is it? How long has all this been taking?
Oh, it's probably, I don't know, late afternoon at this point.
The 4 hour
You-
drive from
Yeah, you flew out and first thing in the morning and had a bus ride and then
So
the
we're done.
rental and the meeting and the rental and the drive out here. So it's been a long day.
Yeah.
We should probably go check it.
Well, I think we at least cursory
What's your
checked it.
constitution?
9.
Yeah, I think at this point you're already kind of hitting the wall.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're going to be at penalties if you need to start engaging skills.
Yeah, I think we've got what we can for now. So left on our list, I'd say, is talk to the Sipigo guy,
And the girlfriend.
girlfriend, check the body, and check the other scene.
And talk to
Yeah.
which will be when we check the bodies.
Yeah.
Take a look at the ruins.
Well, the body, I don't know. I think Potter's body is probably
Long
already-
gone. Oh, yeah, that's what I figured. We weren't sure. We can call. Like this afternoon, let's just call it.
Yeah, I think Potter's body's gone. But,
Yeah.
Definitely the
in a
envelope
plot
there next
somewhere.
year.
But
Is Myers still there?
yeah, Myers' body is still.
All right, let's make an appointment to see them
office.
tomorrow, mid-morning or something.
Okay. Yeah, they'll do that.
All right, so-
This late in the day, you probably don't reach anybody at the office, but you can get
Very
Abner's person from somebody will kind of deliberately agree to be there whatever time you
I
say.
learned to turn this
Well, it's what?
off
How far? It's
before
like
we go on
a couple hours from here.
30, yeah, probably 2.5 hours.
Okay. So let's just shoot for 10.
I hate those things. I
They're
don't know
more
why
long,
they
they're on
exist.
the way. Okay.
All right, so you can all regroup at the motel,
Yeah.
and you're getting
We'll share what we found and vice versa, I think.
getting a couple of cabins. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, conjoining
Oh, they don't have conjoining
Well,
cabins.
but adjacent.
Well, it looked like it was one
Two
cabin
units
was
per
a
Two
duplex. So
Oh, did it?
It looked
Yeah,
like it's the
Maybe
food.
they have a duplex. Okay, sure.
and that's what it.
Sure.
food is
Yeah,
like
you can
two
have
front
you can
doors.
have a duplex cabin.
Why not?
Well, that's not the cabin. That's
Yeah, cabin units are located in the single-story duplex building.
Okay, yeah, there you go. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll do that. Whose credit card is the cabin on?
Nope.
Oh, mine. I'll do it.
All right.
I'm just taking a look at receipts.
Yeah.
Because you're out of school, right? I had to file for reimbursements.
Yeah, I'm not getting reimbursed for that shotgun. So.
Didn't know you own a shotgun.
No,
Now you own a shotgun in your
no,
own
yeah.
name.
Yes.
Serial
Which can be traced.
numbers in the system and everything.
Yep.
What's your?
Luckily, it's just a shotgun, so you're not going to have to worry about rifling and all that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I'm gonna take a. I'm gonna spend some time tonight and take a note from that former FBI agent from the last game and get my nail file out and remove the serial number.
Okay. Make a. That'll take you a while. What's everybody else doing while Janet's?
Filing it down. Her,
Getting overdosed.
shotgun. I don't know. Let's get dinner and just talk about
Yeah.
it. There's a restaurant at the resort.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Go put some food.
They're all very family friendly, except for the saloon, which is a saloon.
Still a little bit family friendly because of the area.
Sure.
but-
Yeah.
It's old friendly.
Yeah.
Multiple friends.
Not really kid friendly.
Yeah. All right. Branson.
Right.
So, all right. We'll set dinner. And
Okay. Janet, make a firearms roll.
To avoid shooting yourself in the
Not
leg.
most.
To see how good a job you do at monkeying with your firearm.
Pass. Critical
Okay.
pass.
All right, so you file that serial number off beautifully.
All right.
But make a note that you have a shotgun
With us. He said, "So when you get pulled over."
untraceable shotgun.
No. Then when you get pulled, it's not suspicious at all.
You even take it apart and file off serial numbers on
Interiors.
some of the individual little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Let's see. So your skill is the same for each type of gun, right?
Yeah.
As far as,
Did you want to buy some non-lethal shells for your shotgun?
oh, nice.
Oh yeah.
Those are good and flexible.
Can you do that at the
Yeah.
Walmart?
You probably have to go to a military school.
Now you tell us.
But,
Rest in
if you want
peace,
them, I'm going
Emma.
to assume you can find some of those.
Yeah.
There weren't any in that
It
store
was
as well.
whatever shotgun was in the.
So if it's using shot,
Oh,
you
no,
can copy
that
this down from here.
I'm sure that's evidence.
What's evidence?
That shotgun that you used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he was.
That's in an evidence.
She was
file
saying
somewhere.
that Sammy should have had non-lethal shot in there.
Yeah.
But it
Why?
wasn't.
Somebody should have thought to go get some of that. That would have been
I
helpful.
didn't know it existed. Thanks.
I knew it existed, it just didn't seem to apply.
And if you use a non-lethal thing, beanbag or whatever it is, then it just does a D6 damage and it stuns them. Okay, so I guess the night kind of passes along. There are many retiree-friendly entertainments to be had around Furnace Creek, by which I mean probably 2 or 3.
Go play bingo.
Yeah, I'm sure they have bingo. And they have like wagon rides. And
But you can't sleep. You might as well be out there doing
No,
something.
I can't
That's
sleep.
true.
I'm sleeping.
yeah, make
You look
a sanity roll for that night.
I'm pretty sure that's just how it is.
Okay. All right. Yes, 4.
Okay, all right. So you sleep that night after all. Good job.
Good.
Good for you.
And all right. So the next morning, everybody's up early.
Want to go to the corner?
Oh, sure. Why not?
Yeah, I'm
We're
definitely.
we're heading out early at 7:30. Whatever.
Okay. You just have a single car that you rented. Everybody's
Yeah, one single car. Yeah.
piling into. All right. And all right. So Another good long drive ahead of you,
2 hours.
at least, and you eventually get to Independence, which is a really small town, but it's kind of centrally located. So that's where the county sheriff's office is. That's sort of the county seat is in Independence. I mean, there's not a hospital. There's some clinic, and then there's an actual hospital at whatever passes for the largest town in the county. But you'll send a helicopter out to get you if you actually need to go there. And so the sheriff, there's the sheriff's office and big, not all that big.
Go
actually.
on.
It's a glass fronted
Just leaving on.
kind of building, and the coroner's office is next
Feeling
door.
guilty.
Okay.
He should.
We have an appointment with the coroner, so I'll go ahead and.
Sure, yeah.
Now, it's going to look weird if we all four go trooping in there. So before we go in, let's decide what we're going to do here.
Why would it look weird if we all went in?
It's not really standard procedure.
To see the body?
Is it?
Yeah.
I'd like to see the
Also,
body.
at least two of you are not
Not actual
officers.
officers. Exactly.
Yeah. Why don't you two stay behind in the town and investigate the witnesses, the girlfriend and the gas guy?
Yeah,
Because
that makes
they
sense.
live in.
No, why don't you guys stay in Hellbound? We're saying instead of coming with us.
Oh.
Hellbent.
Sorry,
Hellbent.
But just
Hellbound.
Hellbound, I think, is really.
It's more appropriate.
Two on the nose.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine.
Okay.
So you can talk to the girlfriend and the sip and go guy who found father's body.
Okay.
All right, and we'll take pictures. I don't think that's weird. Not too weird.
Yeah.
It's just a little weird.
So we got 50 rounds of scatter shot, 25 rounds slugs, and 25.
Okay, so we'll explain that, we're investigating a couple of odd deaths and Hellbound.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
He's probably seen both
Abner handled both of them, and he essentially pretty much tells you what Androsi did at first, to sort of get everybody on the same page. That he looked over the bodies and he says that Potter's body. Androsi loved his theory of the Bobcat doing the damage to him. I wrote down that it was injuries consistent with an industrial accident, which is as far out on that limb as I'm willing to go.
Well, yeah, I'll tell him, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that happening.
Well, I don't know how it happened.
Yeah.
But
You have any
we
opinions?
got a body, and we don't have we don't have much to go on. So
That's a weird combination of wounds, isn't it?
Is it?
well,
Crushing.
sure. I mean, it from what we could see, yeah. But
Do you have autopsy photos?
sure, yeah.
If you don't mind, can
Yeah. They'll let you look those over.
Once you do that, so we can get a copy of them, both his files. Okay.
Can I make a forensics roll on looking at those photos to see if I can glean anything extra he might have missed? I'm kind of.
Professional.
He is a professional, yes, but
But he's a professional.
Yeah.
But he's
I
also
mean,
a
do you
professional.
have any medicine skill? Yeah, I mean it's
It's all right.
the kind of combination of medicine and forensics that
Okay.
makes you a pathologist. So, yeah, I mean you're really good with forensics. You're really good at crime scenes. It kind of but you're not as good at the bodies part of it.
sure.
But I mean nothing. You'd probably notice if he was saying something that didn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, he
he's
seems like
basically
he's-
saying what we think, which
Right.
is this is crazy.
Yeah,
There's no good
it looks
explanation.
weird, and he doesn't know what happened, and he doesn't think he has any way of knowing what happened, and sometimes that's the way it
Yeah,
goes
it
down.
does happen.
Yeah.
But her body's here. You can see it on mine.
What's left of it? We can only confirm that with dental records.
Yeah. Can we take a look?
Yeah, sure.
The remainder.
Pretty awful.
Yeah. It's not as awful as it's not squishy. I mean, it's mostly just bone.
Okay.
So,
Bits of leathery meat.
not many. I mean,
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
just enough to keep the buzzards hopeful for another couple of days.
But parts are missing too.
Yeah,
A leg and an arm, I think.
part of the pelvis, if I
Her
remember right.
pelvis, yeah.
And 2 arms on the pollard.
Yeah, and again, I mean, what happened?
Do you want that?
No, it's just separate.
Yeah, and again, he's sort of. If she'd been found next to a big machine, I could maybe sign off on the same way, but who knows? I mean, maybe she got hurt in the same way he did, but then the body got dragged.
Yeah, we don't think she was killed at the place. She was
No,
found.
I don't think so. No,
Yeah.
there wasn't any. He calls up. Well, you saw Androsi's photo.
Right, yeah, we'll tell him we've seen that.
Right, and yeah, so no, he reiterates there wasn't anything there wasn't a lot of blood there.
Right.
There wasn't anything that looked like the body had been rotting there for a long time. You know, however long it's been laying there, it's
What kind? I mean, so what kind of big carnivores do you have that are going to haul off body parts?
maybe one of the big cats if it gets industrious enough.
But that sounds kind of
Yeah.
weird, doesn't it? All right. Well, I mean, we don't know. Were there signs of gnawing on the bones? You said they were sheared.
Yeah, maybe. You know, they're certainly marked up and damaged, but nothing nothing that is consistent with with cougar teeth.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious when a bone's been gnawed by or crushed by biting it versus being sliced with a blade. So
Yeah.
that's me, not my character.
Right.
Yeah. Well, he'll say that.
Yeah. I mean, he'll say it's pretty obvious. Okay. So
I mean, the way that the bones are. Yeah, I mean, they're badly damaged. There's all kinds of I don't know.
Is there any way to tell if the mutilation was post-mortem or if it was
On her?
on her? Probably not.
No, not really.
Potter?
Yeah, on Potter, it didn't look like it.
Mhm.
I mean,
That was the cause of death. You think was
yeah.
the combination of
And
crushing
trauma,
and cutting?
right.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Was there any clothing or personal items found with her?
that's a good question. No.
No,
Okay, that's interesting. in itself.
not with these remains. No.
Uh-huh. So she killed somewhere, stripped, when the body was moved there. What was left of it? It's weird.
I mean, the clothes could have come
Could've-
off just in moving her around.
Yeah.
If an
Right.
animal
Yeah, it
was-
should have.
If an animal was carrying her around.
It's possible.
It's improbable.
Well, I'm going to thank him for all of his help, and we'll take the copies of his files with us. And we may be giving you a call, but I think that's probably going to get us what we
Oh yeah, I definitely wanted to get a copy of
We have copies of his files. And then Drew.
Androsi's files on both incidents.
Mm-hmm.
So we can make our
Yeah.
set of files going. Okay.
Sure.
All right, so then we'll drive back.
All right. So that morning,
5 hours.
yeah.
Well,
So-
we can stop by the
Sheriff's
crime scene
office?
on our way back.
We'll,
the most recent.
we'll do that.
All right. So back
We
in.
are talking to the sip and go guy and the girlfriend, Emily,
All right.
whatever. her name
Yeah,
is.
yeah. So the sip and go is at the main crossroads of Hellbend. It essentially what passes for an economy in Hellbend is sort of revolves around the sip and go. There's the sip and go itself, and then there's a couple of people have souvenir stands that they put up that sort of, occasionally, but most of the town is just those sort of empty tracks and old storefronts that have been abandoned for decades.
The game store was really funny, actually.
We should ask around to see if there's been any new cars in town.
So we have Jarvis. So we go to Jarvis first, I guess.
Let's see. Gas and Tip. Gas and Tip is a 2-story, rickety-looking building with a gable roof. It was probably maybe it was a house at one point early when it was first built, but in the corner of Main and State Streets in the middle of the town, aging Coke signs and ancient ads for Grill Cream on the side. Everything kind of washed out by the sun over the years. 2 old gas pumps in the middle of a concrete block out front. And when you pull up, there's a young, looks like a young hippie, like white guy with dreadlocks, sitting in a rattan chair under the shade on the front porch as you pull up. And so he kind of doesn't bother to stand up unless he has a need to, but smiles and nods at you and says, "Good morning."
Good morning. We're here to see Mr. Green. Is he in? Jarvis?
Oh, that's me?
Not what I was expecting. And
Well, I run you say that out loud?
no, I know, but I'm sure I look surprised.
All right, yeah, he can read it on your face.
Yeah.
And he kind of laughs and says he runs the store for his grandpa Monty, who lives upstairs, but he's a little too old to keep everything running here.
I see. Okay. We're trying to find out a little bit more about Clifford Potter. I understand he rented some sort of a bobcat.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I found poor old Cliff out there. It was just torn to pieces. It was good. He kind of shakes his head. It was rough.
Did he tell you what he was going to do with the bobcat?
Yeah, he just wanted scrap. He liked to look for copper things he could sell.
And so,
why did he need a bobcat for that?
Because he liked to go out to the hunt plant out there, and it's just big piles of concrete all over the place.
So he's rented that equipment before then?
Sure.
Yeah. And so he was late getting it back to you, and that's why you were...
Yeah, I went out to check on him. So
How late
make sure
was
the
he?
Bobcat's okay. Well, make sure poor old Cliff's okay too.
How late was it? I mean, how...
Why'd you go out?
When did you start to get worried?
Well, it was the next day. He was going to have it back in the morning, and didn't come back and didn't call or anything.
So when you went out there and you found his body, did you notice anything at all unusual? Even hear anything unusual? Did the scene seem off in any way to you?
Well, there was a report.
I mean, just other than poor Cliff out there. I mean, that was certainly unusual.
So how did you find him, and what did? Was he just out in the open? Was he close to the bobcat? What?
He was next to it. I mean, it wasn't in the middle of town. Yeah. It wasn't in the middle of the plant out there. It was he had already come on. I guess he had come on the road, starting to head back to town. but it was off the side of the side of the road there, yeah, so he was right there next to it.
Did you recognize any pieces of the clothing? I mean, how did you know for sure it was him? Because it sounds like he was pretty messed up. I mean,
Well, but
same
it
clothes.
was him. I could see his face.
I would know that most of
It was
clothes.
kind of flat.
Didn't say it's
Just that it was crushed.
Yeah.
The skull was crushed. It was,
Yeah, I mean, it was, I could tell.
His
It
torso
was his
crushed.
clothes and what was left of him. I mean, you could tell who it was. Anyway, who are y'all? Are you with the newspaper or something?
No, we're
we're just ghouls.
They're just terrible
No, it says it
people.
was just his rib cage was crushed,
Okay.
so his head would have been
yeah, fine.
Okay.
recognized.
My
No,
last
we're,
question for you, sir, is what were his last words when you cut his arms off?
What did he taste like?
No, we're just we're working with the authorities just to try and figure out what happened to him. It just was such a horrible death and all. We just wanted to help look into what was going on.
All right.
Make a human intro to see whether or not he bought that.
Make sure he's not buying it.
Is there anything else you want to? All right. So since then, you haven't had any, like the bobcat itself. Have you ever seen anything like an accident like this?
I better backtrack a little bit.
Uh-huh.
He found the body that evening, so Potter had rented it for the afternoon and was going to bring it back by
The afternoon.
Yeah, he was going to bring it back by
Okay.
6 p.m. say.
So yeah.
And so
Okay.
Well,
when
wasn't
he
his
didn't,
time?
when he
Like-
didn't
His
come back,
earliest time of death was at 6.
let me check.
He died between 6 and 9.
Yeah, so he.
So Jarvis went on
Yeah. So Jarvis went out. Yeah, Jarvis went out looking for him that night,
Okay.
and yeah,
Have you ever seen?
and called
Every day.
called it in at.
So glad he's
He called the sheriff the sheriff's office
Right.
at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, I think.
All right. Well, I'm just going to ask him if he's. Have you ever had any
It might have been later than that when he called it in. It was pretty late.
other accidents like this with any machinery like this? Have you ever?
No, Potter knew what he was doing.
So it seems unusual, doesn't it? I mean that.
Yeah.
Yeah, not every day. It's cut to pieces.
Okay.
Everything about this is unusual, lady. What do you want from me?
Okay.
Just say that you did it so we can go home.
Is this consistent with all of the other deaths you've caused with your bobcat?
Yes. All right. Well,
Have you ever
Yes,
seen
I'll-
your bobcat move by itself?
I guess I'll thank him if he's not going to offer up any more information. That's any more.
No, it was just a shame. Potter was. I wouldn't say he was a nice fella because he was pretty crotchety, but we got along all right.
And he
He
didn't
certainly
seem out of sorts that
liked my
way?
grandpa. He was always coming in and talking to him.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Did they have similar interests? What would they?
Yeah, he was. Well, Potter liked to hear about the hunt plant out there, and Grandpa worked for old Arthur Hunt back in the day.
Arthur Hunt.
He owned the plant.
Yeah, he founded the company. And I mean, this is a long time ago, but when Grandpa was young, after the war, he he started working for Mr. Hunt. So Potter came in and liked to ask him questions about it and kept tapes of it. He was just real curious about the early days of the plant, I guess, before it blew up.
How did it blow up? What do you know? What made the plant blow up?
I bet his
Oh, it was some kind of a big industrial thing. I don't know exactly what happened, but it was. Actually, give me just a second. I'll double check. Maybe I'll tell you more than that.
What are you doing?
You catch any of that?
We can play some for the too.
Oh, I heard something about that the plant blew
Oh my
up and that Clifford had been investigating.
Run away.
I'm recording. I'm just getting to Clifford's house.
He had a fascination with the plant.
That's the source. Pretty obvious, I think.
Okay, we'll talk about the ramp.
Yeah, when in the first paragraph you see a bank industrial site.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Wasn't first, but yeah, third is like first. They're both numbers.
Single digit numbers.
Yeah.
He's adorable.
I hope so. You're
Yeah,
12.
I mean, he says it was. I mean, it was a
Sorry.
manufacturing plant that made parts for the Department of Defense and
Did it?
for the military. It made stuff for military contractors, and but it had some kind of a power overload and gas leak and something or other that everything kind of went wrong all at once and blew it up good. 26 people got killed.
Really?
Gracious.
Yeah, we were just lucky that the grandpa wasn't there that day.
And is your grandfather still alive?
Oh yeah, he's upstairs.
We talked to him.
If he says so, sure, it's okay with me.
We'd love to talk to him. That would be nice.
We love
We
old
won't.
We do love old
We
people.
do.
We'd like to have him for dinner.
Yeah, we won't take up too much of his time if he's available to.
Long as he puts up with you, he's got as much time as he wants.
Okay.
He just watches TV and we play checkers.
Okay.
That's pretty much his day every day.
And what's his name?
Montgomery Green.
Okay.
Yeah. So he takes you inside. I mean the gas and sip. It's inside. It's kind of crowded and rickety, and there's just stuff everywhere, and it's like what Cracker Barrel is trying to look like,
But the real thing?
Yeah, and
But
but he and so he takes you upstairs to the bedrooms and knocks on the door and talks to his grandfather and then lets you in and his grandfather's in there. He's ancient. He's got to be 100 years old, and the room smells like old man. Right? It doesn't smell like it doesn't smell like catastrophic
The worst
dying
smell.
old man,
But
right?
just
But it's just
I know the smell.
there's an old fellow that's been living here for
Long time.
decades and decades and decades and doesn't do much except hang out in this room. but he's at a he's sitting in a comfy chair next to a table and has a TV over there, and he looks up and
Shrieks in horror.
he kind of smiles and says, what can I do for you, pretty young ladies?
And I'll say I'm Penelope Hawtrey from England.
From England, obviously.
From England, obviously.
The UK's own.
This is
Hawtrey.
From England.
And this is my friend Harley Woodhouse.
Associate.
My associate, Harley Woodhouse, and we were just speaking with Jarvis about Clifford Potter, and he said that you were friends with him and used to do some talking. I just wondered if you could tell me a little bit about his interest in the plant and your experiences at the plant.
Oh, well, sure. Cliff started coming around a while ago. He kind of looks up at his grandson to figure out exactly how long. And Jarvis says it was about a year and a half. And he says he came and wanted to talk about Mr. Hunt and how the plant got started and how the company got started.
Did you ever ask him why he had such an interest in the plant? What
Did you ever suspiciously torture him?
Oh, I may have once or twice, just out of curiosity. But sometimes people take an interest in something, and Cliff is one of those fellas that he gets interested in a thing and just won't let up on it.
Like a bulldog with a bone.
Oh yeah. I had a friend of mine who was who loved to talk about the Civil War, and every time you met him, he'd be talking about the Civil War, this and the Union, that. And,
I've got a lot of friends like that.
Yeah. Well, with Cliff, once he started digging around at the plant, then he just got curious about it and wanted to know all about it.
Did he have any? Do you remember any certain set of questions he asked? Were any of the questions ever out of the ordinary to you?
Oh, I don't guess. I mean, he loved to talk about Mr. Hunt. The more he found out about him, when I first hired on, it was to help out Mr. Hunt. It was a newspaper ad. After I got out of the Marines, I was 22 years old and didn't know what I was gonna do with my life, but answered a want ad, and it was kind of a funny want ad, but
Funny how?
Like, what did it say?
I've got a copy of it around here somewhere.
Really?
Of course you do.
A copy?
Well, sure. At least it was kind of funny, and I spent 15 years working for Mr. Hunt after that, so I hung on to it, kept it in a scrapbook, and he
Mr. Hunt
Can we see? Can I see?
No time to explain.
digs it up and hands it out to me.
Safety not guaranteed.
Read it out loud.
Okay, so this was the ad in its entirety. Servant wanted, accustomed to extreme conditions, unerringly efficient and efficacious. Yeah, something. Comfortable in tropical climes. Asks no questions. Expects no untoward considerations. High pay. And you worked with him for 15 years.
Well, see, it's that last one that I liked a lot.
The high pay.
The high pay.
I mean,
Sure.
I've been a Marine, and they had us in Central America, and so I didn't mind it being hot and unhappy, but as long as I was getting paid for it.
Right. So those were the extreme conditions, that it was hot?
Well, it was everything was kind of funny with Mr. Hunt. I mean, he would
Sacrifice small children.
No.
Just figures.
I mean, he hardly ever slept. I only saw the man asleep maybe once in all the time that I worked for him.
How old was he when you started working? What'd you guess Mr. Hunt was?
Oh, he was probably about 40-something.
So he didn't sleep a lot, and he just had any... Did he have any other odd peculiarities?
Oh, sure. How long you got?
Oh, let me pull up a chair, sir.
He kept his office out there hot, like heated. I mean, in Death Valley, he kept the heat on, and had these funny lights that he got specially made and put in that were kind of, what do you call it? They're kind of built so it's inside the wall part like, and he most of his time he just stayed in that hot room. It didn't look like it was sweating him out, although it sure sweated me out every time I had to spend the day in there with him.
What would he do in his office?
Well, he read all the time. He read 3 to 5 books every single day. You know, you're going to tell me I'm making that up, but even when he was working hard, I mean, and he worked hard. He was always designing new inventions and machines and whatnot, and but even so, he had me bring books in for him every single day, politics and religion and current events, and then he liked the military history and just all kinds of things.
But his focus with the plant was on military defense parts, contract parts for the military. Is that?
Well, that's what the plant did. It was mainly working for some of those early like rocket and missile companies.
Mm-hmm. But he had a plant.
Yeah, smart, like you wouldn't believe.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Well, if you were millennially aged too, you would probably
But he usually just stayed in his office all the time. If he went out in the plant, he made sure he had me make sure that everything was lit just so. He liked things the way he wanted them. Didn't
so
put
he
up
was
with
very particular about temperature and lighting.
Yeah, big floodlights out that we had to put out there to light up a room he was going to go into, and I mean nobody could put up with the heat for too long, but he just loved it.
Did you ever see him outside of that area? Did you ever see him around town anywhere? Out anywhere, or was the only place you saw him?
No, he wanted to stay in his. He wanted to stay in his office. I mean, he lived in his apartments here or there with the office. But you know, everything he read, he could just say it right back to you a week later. It was the craziest thing. I never saw anything like it. Smart man, you wouldn't believe how smart. And he wrote. Whenever he did his design work, he would write in this like shorthand that I never seen anywhere else either. These little symbols like math symbols, and he said it was his own code. You know, that he didn't want anybody else to see, because he had to keep his projects a secret because of the Air Force.
Yeah. And if anybody else saw that handwriting, it would just be alien to them.
Yeah, you might could say that. And one
You
time
wanted to speak Miss British.
Well, he had a funny way of talking too. I mean, we had there was just one time he got mad because the lights weren't right, and he started yelling at us in something that sounded like some Polynesian or South Seas or something lingo.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it sounded like from when I had been.
Had you assumed to that point that he was American?
Well, of course he was American.
course.
Full-blooded American.
Lizard person.
10 generations back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
But he only ate vegetables, and you had to make them just right. All had to be clean just right. Had to be clean just right. Otherwise, don't even cook them. Don't prepare them, anything like that. I'd bring him in his supply, and he would if I did anything to it, even if I just sort of wanted to chop up anything at all, he'd know just looking at it and smelling at it, and boy, he'd let me have it.
He sounds like a very interesting fellow. I can see why Clifford took an interest in it.
He didn't like going outside. He had these like goggles that he had made special
During the daytime?
when he went out. Yeah, they were this sort of deep yellow kind of color. Always carried around with
Were
him.
the lights that he had inside that same tinted color, or what kind of light?
It was it was about probably the same thing. I never put on his fancy goggles, but I expect that was about right.
Interesting.
Well,
It's very interesting that you worked with this man for 15 years and never put his goggles on.
That's his goggles.
So how did-
I'm not even there.
I got yelled at putting his zucchini on the plate wrong, let alone messing with his
Good
goggles.
stuff. So what happened to Mr. Hunt?
Yeah, afterwards.
He got blown up in the plant. To everybody
Did
else.
he?
Did he indeed? Did he really?
Or
Did he
maybe-
have any family here that you know of?
No.
No, he didn't have any other family that he ever spoke of or spoke about?
No. He wouldn't talk about him. And when he died, the company went to the board of directors, took it over, and they moved everything else elsewhere. So it's it stayed in business, but they changed names a couple of times. You know how they do when the company changes and evolves. And
So Mr. Hunt was killed in the explosion.
yeah, unless the game master has to change his mind on that when he remembers better later.
Okay.
Could be that this guy just thought
All
that
right.
he died.
Well, you've been very helpful. Is there anything else you want to share about either Mr. Hunt or
How many people
Mr.
he
Potter.
killed by tearing them apart with his weird scissor hands?
why you might have felt maybe that Mr. Potter took such an interest in Mr. Hunt? But obviously it's probably just because he's an interesting guy.
Well, I mean, don't. Yeah.
Would a
like I
Mr.
said, he just started gathering stuff up out at the plant and got interested in it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. You've been very helpful. Do you have anything I want to Good.
Not that I can think of.
Okay. All right. So we'll
What's that map?
thank them and take our leave of them both. That's so interesting.
So we're going to talk to
Emily. Talk to Emily Warren.
All right.
So we'll drive up to Emily's.
Where was the plant?
Near Clifford. Probably.
Gotcha.
Right there. We're probably to the west, since to the east is Nevada.
and where it says sheriff, that's the town, the little place we're staying.
Yeah, that's where we're staying.
But where you actually physically are right now.
But we currently
Oh.
are driving from over here.
Yeah, so we would pass by that
So,
arroyo, so we could totally.
yeah, we'll stop by that way.
Do you want to do that on our, before we get into our visit with Emily?
It shouldn't be long. I don't think we're going to find anything.
I don't think we are either, but
Okay.
I mean, honestly, it would have taken us at least 2 hours driving, an hour there talking to the guy,
Ooh,
2 hours
yeah,
driving back. So you guys, You guys would totally be talking
You have plenty
to
of time.
your girl before we would get to the Arroyo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're going to go and talk with Emily Warren then. And
Okay.
is she at home?
Yeah. They live in this little. She lives in this little house that people can, or Jarvis can point you to, give you directions to get up there, and so I mean, it takes a couple of minutes for her to come to the door, but and so when she does, I mean, you recognize her from the photo, but she looks kind of, I don't know.
Haggard.
Yeah, and kind of not all there, but
It's only been a few days.
yeah. And she kind of looks at the two of you, and then it occurs to her to say hello, and
Right.
who are you, and what are you doing here? Is the implication.
Okay. Well, yeah, I would be like just very gentle and soft spoken, and introduce myself and introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Harley.
And just say, I'm sorry for your loss, and it's what a tragedy. I know that Lucille was a great sculptor, and yeah, I'm sorry for your loss, and I was hoping you could just spare a few minutes to maybe answer a few questions for us.
Yes, condolences.
Why did you come?
Yeah, sure. She lets you in, and goes into the living room and kind of curls up on half of a battered old love seat and sort of stares, waiting for you to say something. The house is very lived in. There's they obviously weren't the first people to live here. It sort of smells like decades of food and candles and
Incense.
families having lived here, and there's a old stereo and speakers and wires kind of connecting to iPods and stacks of CDs. It
Cats?
looks like it's gotten a lot of use. No, they don't have any cats.
Okay.
Are there any lizard people in here?
No, just you. And they, but yeah, it's just everything is really, really quiet.
Okay. Well, I would just start out by asking her, can you tell us a little bit about Lucille? The kind of person she was and that sort of thing. And
yes, she loved to sculpt, loved to make things, and she spent most of her free time in the evenings, especially. She'd walk around the outside of town, gathering things up, supplies and things, and she never went more than about a half mile. But
was she ever out after dark doing this, or is this mostly?
Not often, occasionally, but not, and never for very long. And it was when she after nightfall. It was about an hour gone. That's when I started calling around and getting worried, because she's never out that late.
Mm-hmm. Was anything different that night that you can remember? Either before she left, did she say anything out of the ordinary or seem unusual at all?
No.
No. Okay. Well.
No, everything was fine. She starts visibly tearing up.
Yeah. All right.
Did she ever go near the old
Factory.
the old factory?
The hunt plant.
The hunt plant?
She wipes her face and says, "No, not that I. No, I mean that wasn't what she liked to work with."
Okay.
She worked with wood and things, was looking for driftwood and that whatnot. So she never had an occasion to be down by the plant or anything like that.
No, that just wasn't what she was interested in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She wanted things from the desert.
Okay. Since you have so everything's been pretty normal here then. Since then, I mean.
Normal?
Well, no, I mean you haven't noticed anything unusual or out of the ordinary. Just the past.
I mean, besides Emily being gone?
Well, yeah, that. No, anything. Yeah.
No.
Okay. All right.
Well, sorry to come here and upset you again. And
Yeah.
if you think of anything that might be significant, just know. Here's our cell phones.
Who are you again?
Don't ask.
We're here just working. You know, it was. And I'm just going to say the same thing I did with Clifford. That you know, we're working with the authorities to try and figure out what happened.
Two incidents that are similar.
She looks like she's already losing interest.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
But we appreciate your time. So thank you. And yeah, as Miss Woodhouse said, if you come up with anything, just give us a call.
That's pretty cool.
That's very cool. It's very pretty.
The Devil's Golf Course.
Is that close to where?
No.
That's one of the.
No, yeah, it's south of here. I'm just
Things to see.
That's
here.
where you can go watch crystallization happen.
Oh, the crystallization for hours and hours. Okay, all right. Well, I guess we'll head back.
Yeah.
Well, what else are you going to do that day? 'Cause it's going to be probably another couple of hours before would they get there.
Checked
What
out the
about
city.
why don't we go out to the plant site just to see what's
You have a compelling urge to get eaten by lizard people today?
Can they? How does the natural work as a skill? Can you use like given all that he told them about the weirdness of Mr.
Yeah.
Hunt, could they try an unnatural just to see if it rang any bells? If there's anything.
You've got a pretty high occult. Would that help me at all?
Yeah. I mean, you've
What I've read about something.
you've
that
probably read and heard crazy stories like on the Art Bell show talking about the lizard people that have taken over the White House and are secretly running the country.
That could be one of them.
Right.
You know. But
All right.
hey, that's where they shot that scene in Mad Max.
Cool.
Titus Canyon.
because
Well, I
there's just
guess-
not a
yeah,
lot to
I
look
mean-
at in this little town.
I
We've
guess
been to the
let's go.
Borax Museum and to the, you know,
The gas and go. There you
the
go.
gas and go.
I mean, Cliff
That's the
Potter
town. I mean,
lived,
unless we, you
Cliff
know,
lived in
Yeah,
Melbourne.
yeah,
Let's
you
go
can
poke
go
around
and-
his house.
Yeah, that was what.
Cliff's house. Okay, we can break
The
into that.
entering hasn't happened yet. Let's do that.
Okay,
Check it off.
I'm for that.
We know.
Yeah, because he didn't have any family. None living. Yeah, let's go by the old Potter place.
Okay.
So
See if there's any journals we can dig up. Like, hey, I'm on the hunt for these snake people.
Let's see. His house is about a mile outside, or sort of a mile from the center of town.
Mm-hmm.
Extremities of Hellbend, near what was commonly called the Bluff, a rise in the land northwest of town that kind of stretched along towards the Hunt Electrodynamics plant as well. He was the only person that lived there that lived within a quarter of a mile in any direction.
Okay.
And when you drive out there, the house looks it looks well maintained. I mean, it's the only well maintained house in the vicinity because nobody else is living out here.
Right.
One-story gable-roofed house, painted this sort of sickly lime green color, and there's like the top of a root cellar out behind the house, small attic on the top of the house, and yeah, I mean, from the files you saw earlier and discussed with your other two colleagues, you know, the deputies looked it over in a kind of cursory way when they were doing their initial investigation, but it didn't seem like they really paid too close attention to it.
Okay.
So I'm thinking we must have two vehicles, obviously, because they're going.
I would assume so.
So maybe y'all brought one of your personal.
Well, I figured I was probably local.
Okay, yeah, that works.
Or at least one.
Just for
of
the
us.
juxtaposition, that's the resort we're staying at.
Nice.
Oh, we have that?
That's the view.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Salt flats, right?
yeah,
behind
that's the greenery.
I wanna
If
see.
you go through the fence, it's
Oh
suddenly
my
not
God.
green anymore.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
It's suddenly the moon.
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's California, though.
That's weird.
That's weird, dude. Yeah.
It's like the area that we used to live in.
Yeah.
It is literally like
Yeah.
another planet once you get.
We lived on
Yeah,
a
barriers.
Navy base when I was teeny tiny in Southern California, and it was like Navy base is like green, and everybody's got gardens and lawns, and you've got underground sprinklers and all of that, and then you leave, and it's like moonscape as far as you can see.
Crazy.
Okay, so this is cool. This guy took an airplane trip from Las Vegas to Furnace Creek. So he just took pictures along the way. So that's the sort of, and like here, going over some mountains, there's Furnace Creek in the distance.
It's so tiny. Wow.
Maybe just flying over it.
It's just a
Yeah.
perfectly square patch of green.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
All right, so we're gonna
I don't
go
think
and
that's natural.
Yeah. I don't
Probably not.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
Cliff Potter's house. It's a small house. There's sort of a front door. There's a back door. There's windows all around. It's not a perfect square. You know, it's sort of one of those old lumpy houses.
Here's something that you guys could do. There's a pool.
Yeah, they have a.
Yeah.
They
it's
have
looking
a,
pretty good.
yeah. And so right. So you tell me what's up.
Okay, so is it locked?
back
I'm going to
door.
assume that it's locked. Yeah, at least the doors are.
Are the windows open up?
Or that back.
Let's see.
Or the back
For Cliff, I don't know. Somebody roll percentile dice.
Go ahead, Amber.
98.
Nope,
Christ.
everything's locked up tight. The deputies were diligent about that.
I should have rolled. It couldn't have been worse.
What about that?
I mean, this is in the middle of an empty.
No one's for
Yeah, nobody's right. Yeah, nobody's
Yeah,
around.
just-
certainly,
Right.
unless they are.
Unless either of you have. Yeah.
Well,
The lizard people could be anywhere.
that.
You never know.
That's right.
I don't have anything that would help.
we're gonna have to like break a window or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or we could get a crowbar from the car and pop the lock on the back door. It'd be less loud.
Now let's do that.
Okay.
All right.
I'm for that. Plus, it's a weapon we have to carry around if we need
Okay.
it.
All right. So you can get through. You get into the back door, and it opens into the living rooms, and door the front door opens into, and sort of off to the looking around. There's a kitchen that's pretty big for the size of the house, and one bedroom and a bathroom, and that's pretty much it. A couple of little closets.
Is there a desk anywhere here that has?
Well, looking around, it looks like the kitchen is where he spent most of his time.
Okay.
I mean, the rest of the house is sparse and sort of almost military clean. Only the kitchen, what it seems, lived in.
Okay. Are there any papers or writings or?
There's a sign over the stove that says, "You don't have to be crazy to live here, but it helps." The kind of funny face.
By the way, of 2010, it says the population is 24 in
Nice.
Furnace Creek.
It's crumbling.
That's probably the.
Oh, that's probably just the.
That's
just
probably the
resort.
permanent, right? The permanent residents of the resort, and then of like Furnace Creek proper, and then Furnace Creek Ranch is like the motel and all the facilities. So there's looking around. There's tinned meat and cans of chili and boxes of noodles, and in the cupboards. On the kitchen table there's a pair of beaten old really heavy work gloves, and a couple of old books, and a notebook, and a map, and a boombox, and a bunch of tapes.
What kind of
audio
books
tapes.
are there?
One is Radioactivity and Geology, an account of the influence of radioactive energy on terrestrial history. The other is Radioactivity and its Measurement.
And I'm going to pick up the notebook. What's in the
viewpoint.
notebook?
Battered, waterlogged, now dry, formerly waterlogged notepad on the table. Hundreds of notes, very few of them legible. And
Thank you.
none of it's really labeled or categorized or organized in any way that you can tell. It seemed like he was writing for himself, writing about things that he knew when he knew what he was talking about. Most of the notes appear to be measurements of distances. There's notes that are kind of obscure, that are about like machine parts, gold, or gold, silver, and radioactive, ? The last page, there's a hand drawing of what looks like an odd pool of some kind, with like some sockets on the border around it. Illustration of that. Yeah.
2.718. I wonder if that's what kind of measurement that is. It's a 2.718.
Geiger
Or
counter?
Geiger counter measurement or something.
Any rats?
Yeah, I don't know where that would be. So,
Inside the plant.
Is that- supposed to represent liquid or something? Water? Alright. Picking up the map that's there? Is there any writing on the map? What's it a map of?
hand-drawn map, obviously fashioned by Potter with great care. Shows what appears to be several passages from a bird's eye view, along with careful measurements of distance and angles between them. Some of the measurements that he refers to in his notebook seem to correspond with things that he's labeled on the maps, distances of on the whatever it is he's drawn here.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'm taking those things, stuffing them away. Continue to look around.
Yeah.
The gloves are heavy work gloves covered in red dirt that they're. You want picking them up?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll pick them up.
Yeah, they're heavier than they look, and in fact, they have lead lining inside.
Radioactivity gloves. All right, so we're dealing with some dangerous.
And there's cassette tapes strewn about the table.
We should gather up
next to an ancient, nearly inoperable boombox radio. Each of the tapes has a chicken scratch label marking it as Monty Int, INT period, followed by a number. There's 24 tapes in all. They're not dated that you can tell.
With
Monty.
Monterey. Monterey's a better name. All right, so we're gathering those up as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll want to listen to those.
All right. Okay, so we came in through here.
The
We're
back.
through here.
The back here.
So you came in through the back door.
Oh, back doors here. Okay. All right.
Okay. Well, we should check out the rest of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and go to the bedroom. Is there anything in the living room?
Not really. I mean, he kept everything outside the kitchen. He kept everything very, very squared away and clean. And seemed, you get the sense he probably minimized the amount of time he actually spent anywhere except the kitchen, so he wouldn't have to clean it later.
So there's nothing else. In any of the anything in the rooms?
No.
Bathroom?
Yeah, no.
Suspicious blood stains.
Okay, what about the root cellar?
Well, there's an
Get
attic.
down to the root cellar.
Is there a way of getting to the attic?
Yeah. Pull down things.
Okay, let's go. Get eaten by a bird.
It's sort of profoundly empty. I mean, he cleaned it out and kept it clean. There's hardly even spider webs.
That is impressive.
Yeah.
All right, root cellar.
The root cellar is recent. Probably dug in the last couple of years.
He was fearful of something.
There's a handmade storm cellar door. In a series of slate steps leading down into it. When you get down there, it's about 12 feet deep, and the cellar itself is about 10 foot by 12 foot across. It looks like, it obviously took a lot of work to build it. And there is a single long-toothed rake propped up against one of the walls, and nothing else.
Nothing else? There's no kind of food down here or provisions for...
Nothing. All right.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we go back up and Be one last cursory.
The floor itself is, you can tell the floor is kind of carefully raked. There's footprints, but only like one set and very limited, like somebody came down and took a few steps and that's it.
I'm gonna scuffle in the dirt a little bit, see if there's anything underneath.
If you just sort of pick up a pinch.
No, I'm kicking it aside, see if there's a patch or something underneath.
Just a little bit of impact so it touches shoulders.
Hidden room.
Every time I come in,
Has some dug tissue.
What's your search skill?
It is 50%.
What is yours?
50? Should I
I don't
roll?
have any.
No.
Wait, that's not me. I do have 80.
You should search.
Why am I not searching?
I don't know. Try and see if you can, then you can call me back.
Well, you can help. We work together.
I'll tell you, just sort of rooting around, you both get the sense that if you were wanting to bury something, this is what it would look like if you buried something here.
Well, now I feel like there's probably something buried here. Let's go get shovels.
Yeah, we do have shovels.
Well, we have shovels in the car.
You have
They're in
shovels
their
there?
car.
I really should wait till they come back.
We'll wait until they come back and tell them about the cellar and my lingering hunch about something being buried in there.
I'm going to assume that Cliff had shovels in his house.
Well, let's go get some
He
shovels.
was kind of
That's being digging around looking for stuff.
Yeah.
True. That's true. Let's get shovels. I'm a dig.
All right, so you start digging around, and before long, one of the shovels clinks on something glass.
Glass. Okay. Gonna more carefully.
Who's got you have the big awesome search score, right? What's your strength? Make a strength times 5 roll.
Oh, God, no.
Okay, so you don't break it.
That was a good one then.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There's as you sort of clear the dirt around it, there's a big glass jar, huge glass jar, thick, clear liquid.
You guys get carboy things?
And inside a humongous insect, looks like a huge, oversized dragonfly, with the wings are kind of crushed and 2 of them are missing, and it's obviously sort of curled up in the liquid, rolled up like a spiral
It's okay.
after it.
I thought you had one of your toys.
I'm going to
After
take
it-
some
after
pictures
it
of it.
died, and
That's interesting.
Like, how big is huge? Like,
Is it Triassic huge? Or is it?
you estimate that if it were stretched out, in life, it would probably be 2.5 feet long.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
huge.
Yeah, that's
That's
huge.
creepy huge.
Yeah, so roll sanity.
Aw.
Either of you have archaeology, anthropology, any kind of paleontology type stuff?
Anthropology. I have anthropology
And
and
history.
archaeology and history.
How much of those do you have?
70,
Oh yeah, okay.
80 in history, 70 in anthropology.
What about you over there?
I've got a 50 in history, and that is it.
No, all right. So you haven't spent much time in these particular stacks. All right, so roll your sanity rolls.
I direct 9-year-old boys to them, and that's about it. So I got a 19. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
They both
You
passed.
both succeed. Okay,
Yeah.
so you don't lose any. You lose 1.
You realize what it is.
You can tell. You say this out loud. It's pretty amazing.
I probably would.
Holy shit. That's
It's a Maganura dragonfly that lived in the Carboniferous period about 300 million years ago.
He looks like one of those prehistoric.
And what is it? I'm sorry. What kind of dragonfly?
Meganura is what it's called.
Meganura. Dragonfly. I haven't seen one of these. I haven't seen one myself in 300 million years.
that how long you live in England?
Here's an illustration for scale.
Jesus Christ. I That is
God.
unreasonable. Like,
That thing could carry off babies.
it probably
If it
did.
wanted to.
Mammals were very tiny in those days. It probably did.
Next to the
So I see it.
next to the jar is a little gold cube
Cute.
in the dirt. Tabitha, I'm sorry, not Tabitha. Harley, you kind of spot it first because she's fascinated with the jar, but you see sort of a glint in your flashlights of gold shining in the dirt next to where the jar
pick it
was.
up.
It's heavy. It's about 2 3/4 inches
Like-
across,
If you say anything, I'm going to turn around and tell you to drop it.
and
Because,
it's like 14 pounds.
yeah, drop
And
it.
you can sort of tell just feeling it that it has to be solid gold. It looks like it's been machined into sort of a precise cube, but it has these kind of odd curving corners and a slight curve to the inner to the faces, and these weird looking icons carved into each face of it.
The concave faces.
My gracious, what a strange little thing.
And
I'm just worried because we've seen so many radioactive readings
and
and heavy gloves.
Gold's not really radioactive.
No, but I didn't know if it was
It could be
if it is
irradiated.
inside or something. I didn't know.
Amber, what's your character's full name again?
Penelope?
It's Penelope Hawtrey
from England.
from England.
Obviously.
Penelope Hot.
HAWTR.
H-A.
Each of the 6 sides of the cube has a different icon. They're sort of this rectilinear, mathematical-looking symbols. Either of you have, I don't know, linguistics-y skills or anything like that?
I know Finnish.
I know Spanish and Russian.
Aside from that, I mean, I would probably have a little bit being a librarian.
What are your occult? Don't tell me you have
Both
really
huge.
Got
bad
a
occult
60.
skills.
An 80.
Got a 80.
Okay, so yeah, Penelope, you've seen some of the symbols out there. You think of this? It's from this hypothetical language called Aklo that you don't remember much off the top of your head about it. But it's one of these languages that sort of is people have kind of theorized as sort of one of these languages or root languages from whatever, something like that. You know, it's odd. It's not a language that anybody speaks nowadays or reads and writes with, or as far as you know, one that's deciphered. Right, that anybody's. Yeah, it's pretty sketchy. It's one of those conspiracy theory kind of languages.
Okay. But I don't know what any of it necessarily means, right?
No.
Okay. I wonder where Clifford found this. These, I should say.
Keep digging and maybe you'll find out.
Well, let's keep digging.
You dig a good big hole and don't find anything else in there. And that's enough, I think. After about you're still sort of deciding. You're just deciding. You've kind of had enough of digging when you regroup with the two of them coming back to town.
Okay. Our plan had been to stop at the second crime scene, but you can tell us if there's nothing there. We're assuming we're not going to find anything there. So gloss over to page.
Right where her body was found.
Lucille's body was found.
Joyce.
Yeah, there's really nothing.
And the only thing we were going to
look around,
confirm
you've
that
seen
it's not where she was
photos and-
killed.
Right. I mean, you've seen photos, and it looks consistent with the photos that you've seen.
Right.
It's just a piece of the desert.
Okay. So my plan was actually to go. Oh no, it wasn't. We were going to get together with you guys. On this side. Okay. So I guess we could figure out where you are and find you.
Yeah, we could call.
Sure. We'll call and say, hey, we're back.
Yeah.
And we'll tell you to come over.
Okay.
Don't drop that cube on your foot.
So we'll show up at the house.
Yeah.
And he fills in on everything you learned from Monty and the house and everything. And all that. So obviously
After I
there's...
show you
So-
the giant dragonfly, which is
Well,
great.
yes.
I'll be right back.
Megan
And you
Moore.
guys can compare.
What else did y'all find in that house?
Later.
Because I was out of the room for a lot of that. I know that y'all
There
found
was
2
a
books on
notebook.
radiation.
A
This
notebook,
notebook with lots of measurements and distances and locations. A map
and a lot
and
of the
things that are
notes
on
were
it.
illegible because it was water damaged. And some cassettes, which we need to
Water
listen to.
damaged from what?
We don't know. Water.
It's dried now, but
It's dry now, but it's not very legible. And also, there's a whole bunch of cassettes, which we
Yeah,
need to listen to.
I
that
suggest
are
listening to them
labeled.
in reverse order.
Well, we don't know
Most
what
recent.
order they're
They're numbered, is it?
Oh, they're numbered. Okay.
So let's start with 24.
Okay.
Go back. Because whatever it was that set him off that may have had him run into whatever's out there was probably recent. The most recent thing he talked to Monty about may have excluded him to go find something.
Okay. What about, you said that you found, like, heavy gloves?
Yeah, there were
Yeah.
heavy gloves, but there wasn't a Geiger counter.
Yeah, that's my question. Is there a Geiger counter anywhere? What did
Yeah, we
he
didn't find one anywhere.
would he have taken that with him when he was out scavenging? Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, he probably would have. But then he seems like he would have taken his gloves. But
You think so, too?
he maybe had more than one pair.
Maybe.
I don't know. Lead-lined gloves, you wouldn't think you'd need more than one pair of those, though.
Depends on how many hands you have. They took his arms. We don't know how many arms he had.
Oh, I love you.
Wow, well. Alright, so I'm most intrigued by, the Meganura, the thing of gold, and the, of course, Mr. What's his name? What's his name that owns the
Mr.
Grandpa.
Hunt?
Yeah. Well, we
Mr.
definitely need to secure all of the evidence that y'all have secured so far.
Done.
Yeah, just to
Secured.
can't let that sort of stuff.
Okay. So the two of you need to make sanity rolls for the gigantic dragonfly.
I've got a 40 in biology. I don't know
Critical
that.
success.
Okay, no loss.
It's a big bug.
Giant gloves.
Clearly they're just
No, that's a
wrong.
failure.
Okay, so that's a D6 out of you then.
What you gonna
with all
do?
your
Like,
biology knowledge
when-
telling you just how long this is.
Should not exist. Should not be.
Yep.
3.
You want to suck that up or bond it out?
I'm still pretty far from my breaking point right now.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. Willpower regenerates each night, right?
Mhm.
So, if you sleep, what are the rules for that?
Roll a D6, lose that much willpower, and lose that much from the sanity loss,
And then
and half of that
half
from,
that from
one of your bonds.
That's pretty straightforward.
But it takes bonds a while to recover, right?
Yep.
Which one of your downtime activities is working on your bomb?
You can spend 1d6 willpower to reduce the sand loss, so 3. Okay. So I reduce the sand loss to 0. I lose 3 willpower points, so I'm at 7. The next time you interact with that bond, describe what shape. Reduce 1 bond by half that much around the top.
Your willpower points ought to be 13.
Okay.
We must not have reset it after the last adventure. Yeah.
Okay.
So that'll probably be 10 for you, because your power's 13.
Right.
And then knock 2 off one of your bonds.
I had a question why my max sanity was so high.
Your maximum possible sanity
Oh, gotcha.
is right. So you can't. You can only get like
It's that minus.
going to therapy and ordinary things to repair your sanity only gets you up to your power times 5. But if you succeed at overcoming horrible threats, you could potentially go up higher than that.
All right, so they filled us in on everything they found.
There we go.
Mhm.
We filled it in on everything we found, which isn't much. Clearly, the plant is the place to go. Let's listen to, if we can get this boombox working, let's listen to the most recent tape with Montgomery Green. My theory is that whatever he set off, whatever he found that killed him, may have been prompted by the most recent discussion he had.
Yeah. Well, you you can kind of thumb through some of the tapes and the interesting parts are where he's talking about what's his name, Hunt, the founder of the company.
Read out the.
Okay, it says page 103, excerpt from a taped interview with Montgomery Green, 98 years old. Resident in Hellbend, Nevada, date unknown. Interviewer Clifford Potter, 58. Montgomery Green, we talking about Hunt again? Yeah, Monty, if that's okay. Sure, why the hell not? He said people would talk about him someday. Did he? Sure. Said he was going to change the face of the earth with what he was working on down there at the plant. Something unintelligible from Potter. You know what? Sounds of a microphone adjustment, unintelligible response. Montgomery Green says, I believed it. Potter, did you ever see what went on down below the plant? Below the plant? Green says, nope, never did. He never really went down there either. He just stayed in his office. The bathysphere, we called it. It's all decked out strange. I heard it cost $100,000 to put together. It was hermetically sealed with a big rubber-lipped cast iron door like a damn battleship. Yeah? Yeah, it was all lit by those Klieg-light jobbies. You know, the ones that cooked in there. 110, sometimes 120 degrees easy. He liked it. Hell, he loved it. He just sat at this weird desk and drew his plans and cooked. No one but me and him could stand it. I was in Bolivia and Honduras for a chunk of time, you understand. Even I found it uncomfortable after a while. What was he working on? I don't really know, except he said it would change the world. The man worked freehand from memory, just drawing out things that looked like blueprints from scratch. I mean, with a damn chalk pencil and some paper, and that's it. He just sat there and rattled it off like he was doing the crosswords. What did they look like? They're hard to explain. Oh, he wrote in this weird code. It looked like math, like symbols. Then he'd redo the whole thing in English when it was ready to be built. Sounds like your ACLO symbols. Page 2, excerpt from tape interview. So you don't think English was his main language? I don't know. He looked white. He looked like he was from Europe or something. He seemed normal. Once or twice I heard him talk in this language. Can you describe it? Well, it sounded like some sort of South Sea lingo, like something from New Guinea or something I heard from someone in the Corps, you understand. Did you know you overheard him? Once? Did he ever say anything to you about it? Yeah, he said forget it. He said he could speak 12 languages and that it was a gift. He could write them too. So his personal habits, they were strange. Well, if he had any personal habits, he never slept. I only caught him dozing once. The guy ate only vegetables and specially prepared stuff. It was flown every morning by courier from Los Angeles. He'd only eat it if it was washed. If I washed it by hand, he knew when I didn't do this. I don't know how. So he was odd. Odd ain't the word, but he was a good boss. Then again, I was used to the Corps. Everything seemed good after the Corps. So he was a good boss? Oh, yeah. Do you think you could go into that a bit more? Sure, don't get me wrong. He hated everyone. All the guys who worked for him. He never once said a kind word to anyone. Conversations with him are always about 3 sentences. He'd ask you a question, you'd understand, you'd answer, and then he'd berate you. But he was always right. He rewarded loyalty and consistency. I had that stuff down from training. I did everything he asked down to the letter. By that time, it was second nature. So you think he liked you? No, he tolerated me, you understand? Did he ever go outside? Once or twice I seen him. He wore these old goggles, Bakelite goggles with blackout glass when he went. Yeah, you could see just fine in the dark. He walked around after hours sometimes in the room surrounding his office in the dark. So he wore them whenever he was in sunlight? Yeah, he liked the heat. He liked the lamps, but something about the sun bugged him. Not his skin, just his eyes. So he didn't like blood. You said something about that earlier. Yeah, I cut myself once while preparing his lunch. When I walked in the tub, Hunt's office, he got up and started screaming at me. He was really, really mad, really PO'd. He stood away from me like it was catching. What was he yelling? For me to get out, to come back later, that he wasn't hungry, that my blood made him sick. So you bled a lot? That's the thing, I didn't bleed hardly at all, just on a finger. The finger was wrapped in gauze. So he saw the bandage? No, I had my other hand with the cut out on the door. He couldn't see it. So how did he know? I think he smelt it.